At this point, based on what happened last night, do you know anything better about it now than you did last night?
No. They've got people everywhere looking for them. I mean, you know, you can hear the helicopters are there, and but they haven't seen anything, and it's crazy. And it's been since 9 o'clock last night, you know, and I really thought that when it got daylight they would find them just in a heartbeat, but they haven't.
Was there anything about the demeanor of the man that gives you concern?
No, in fact, when he made me get out of the car, I tried to get my children. I just begged him, please let me take them. And he said no, he didn't have time because they were in car seats and it was going to take time for me to get them out of the car seat. And he just told me, he said, but I won't hurt them. And he just took off. But he had a gun, and my big thing is they were screaming, hollering, crying, and I'm just scared that he just lost his patience or something, you know. Yeah, I don't know. All I'm doing is just praying and just keeping my faith that they're going to be okay.
You've never seen this guy before?
No, sir. Never.
And he just came out of the blue?
I was stopped at a red light, and I was looking this way, looking toward the left, and it was just like, in a second, he was in my car. He just opened the car door, and I just screamed. I said, what are you doing? He just shut up and drive, and he had a gun, and he was poking it in my side, you know, and told me to drive. And so I drove, and I was trying to ask him one time, you know, why, what do you want? You know, please just, you know, don't hurt me or the children. He said, and he never said anything. All he ever told me was, shut up or I'll kill you. He said, don't say anything else. And my children were crying, and I was trying to tell them, you know, that it was okay, that, you know, don't worry. And he would, you know, and he let me talk to them. And then we just got maybe 3 or 4 miles down the road, and he told me, he said, I want you to stop. And I said, stop right here? He said, yeah, stop right here. And it was just in the middle of the road. I mean, you know, and I stopped, and he told me to get out, and I was in the driver's side, he was in the passenger side, and so I opened the door. I said, I'm going to get my children before I go. He said, no, you can't. He said, I don't have time for that. You know, he just, and sort of pushed me on out the door, helped me get on out the door, and he slammed the door and took off. And I ran to the closest house that I could. And I do understand why they're having to do what they're doing. I'm all they have. Right now, they have not been able to rule anyone out. I don't think I'm any more of a suspect than anyone in this case right now.
It's very painful to know that anyone would think that either of us had anything to do with this abduction of our children. But me and my wife know the truth.
Smith has been arrested and will be charged with 2 counts of murder in connection with the deaths of her children, Michael 3 and Alexander 14.
It was anything but a homecoming. Susan Smith back in Union. Her head held down, her face out of view, angering an already angry town.
She can't be warm knowing they cold and all the time knowing that they're in the bottom of this lake. There's no excuse. I would never forgive her for that.
Tight security at the courthouse, both inside and out. Authorities taking no chances with this much-hated mother. At the bond hearing for Susan Smith, the defendant never appeared. She waived her right to be heard and remained out of view. In a mob of reporters, solicitor Tommy Pope was asked about the death penalty for Susan Smith.
It goes back to evaluating the case. You know, I want to look at everything because our whole job is to get justice, you know, in this courthouse, and we need to evaluate everything.
Susan Smith will be represented now by attorney David Bruck of Columbia. He had little to say to reporters, except that Susan is now showing great remorse.
She is as heartbroken as anyone I have ever seen in my life.
There is word Susan's overnight stay at the York County Jail was anything but a hardship. A woman inmate who talked to news, but the people here in Union say Susan Smith's days are numbered. Most we talk to want the death penalty for Smith. Others want revenge.
When
the sheriff called and asked for assistance. So we sent a team over, and one of the first agents that went over was a forensic artist who works with an alleged victim and does a pretty good interview, and as well as doing the artist's sketch. And when he completed his work that night, he pretty much indicated that he thought there were some problems with Susan Smith's story.
So that was Bob Stewart just a few years ago, I believe, on the 20th anniversary of all of this. This sparked, as you might imagine, a lot of outrage, not only in Union County where this happened, all across the state of South Carolina and nationwide. People were outraged that this woman could come forward and tell such a lie and put people in such an uproar.
Now, in 2015, she wrote a letter in prison to give her side of what happened. She says she's not a monster and that she was a good mother and loved her boys. Smith says something went wrong that night. She was not herself, and there was no motive because it was not planned.
Well, she says there's no motive, but the prosecutor said there was a motive here.
And what was that?
A 23-year-old Susan Smith wanted to have a relationship with a wealthy man in Union County, a man who had told her he didn't want a family. And for that reason, they say she strapped her children inside the car and rolled it in John D. Long Lake.
Now that night, she told police that a black man carjacked her and her vehicle with her sons still inside. As you heard, 3-year-old Michael and 1-year-old Alex. After 9 days, though, Susan Smith finally confessed, saying she did it herself. Smith is now serving a life sentence at Leith Correctional in Greenwood and is eligible for parole, believe it or not, in 2024.
The case received national attention.
Susan
Smith and her then husband David appeared on national news pleading for their boys' safe return.
Followed this story. Do you know anything about her time in prison? What can you tell us?
I know she hasn't been the model prisoner. She has been written up at least 5 times on various charges. There's drug use. Also, she had sexual relations with 2 correctional officers. That was when she was housed here in Columbia. She has since been moved to Greenwood. So when her probation hearing comes up in a few years from now, all these things that have happened will come back and they'll look at it and they'll decide then.
You were in the courtroom during the trial. Talk to me about who Susan Smith was in that courtroom.
We heard a lot about Susan Smith inside that courtroom, some of it very disturbing testimony. We heard that she tried to commit suicide at the age of 13. She tried to commit suicide at the age of 18. She was sexually molested by a member of her own family for many years. Her father killed himself when she was only 6 years old. So the defense here tried to tell the jury, look, this woman has some mental issues. This woman has some problems. This woman doesn't deserve the death penalty. This woman doesn't deserve to die for these crimes because she's pretty messed up.
Now, JR, we talked a little bit about the husband, but, you know, again, he was not a part of this plan. He believed her that somebody had taken their children and believed that they were missing for that time period. What do you know about what